guys with the sunburn now, but it'll pop.
KC Laboratory, sponsored by Emprise Bank.
A very merry Draftmas to all of you. It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank. You may not get Alexa to fold the laundry, but you can transfer money with voice banking. Transfer money, make a loan payment, get your routing number, and even find ATMs while making dinner or the timeout of the Chiefs game or the commercials during the NFL draft. There won't be any commercials during the NFL draft party that we'll be throwing at Kingdom Bar and Grill. So you might want to check that out. But thank you to our friends at Emprise Bank, our partner in Possible. I am so excited for tonight. If you could not tell, I have a newfound energy today. We are in draft week. Maddie, merry Draftmas to you, my friend.
We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. You know, we'll give a hat tip, but we're not quite ready yet. It's we're getting there, slowly but surely getting there. It does feel like draft week though. You wake up, you get the Peter King mock draft comes out, Albert Breer's Monday morning QB with all the nuggets, and all of a sudden you're getting rumor leaks that come out. And I know we always say, hey, don't pay attention to anything you listen to. This is the week where I kind of do start to pay attention. This is the week where, yes, there's going to be some fluff. Enough real stuff is also coming out now. So this is the week you start to pay attention to what a lot of people are saying. So I'm excited that we're here. I'm excited to see your guys' faces actually, we're going to see each other's faces on this computer screen every single day from now until Thursday. But then I'm going to see Craig and Kent's lovely face in person.
Yes, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be at the Kingdom Bar and Grill at 6 p.m. Arrowhead time for the draft. We're going to be
5:45. We're going to be there
5:45. We're going live at 5:45. We're going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all throughout that. We're going to be taking you through every single pick. We're going to be taking you through the Chiefs selections, breaking those down in depth. We are going to have analysis for you. So if you are remote, if you are not able to make it to Kansas City for the Kingdom Bar and Grill party, you can stay tuned right here, subscribe right down here. And while you're here, rate, review, do all of that wonderful stuff. But if you're in Kansas City and you can make it, come out, join us. 360 Vodka has some specials that they're doing. And oh man, seen some of them. They're going to be great. So get out there, food specials, drink specials, hang out with Chiefs fans. Get to react in real time when the Raiders blow yet another pick. It's going to be glorious. I'm excited. I can't wait. Kent, this is your Christmas, buddy. This is the best time of the year for you. It really is, isn't it?
I love it. It's well documented how much we all love it and how it has brought us together in a lot of different ways. If you guys don't know, our first, both of these guys were big pivotal parts of my first year at Arrowhead Pride. We just talked draft all day in the DMs, and they actually made an appearance before the laboratory was the laboratory on a draft show with me and Jake. They gave analysis of, I think Craig did Dorian O'Daniel. I think Maddie did Breland Speaks. And he did. No, you did Breland Speaks for sure. And yeah, so it was fun. And so this has been a big piece of our friendship. It's kind of bonded us together too. So I'm excited to hang out with these guys at Kingdom Bar and Grill all weekend. Cannot wait. We have some fun stuff to talk about today.
Before we get started, you don't know what I'm about to do. I'm interrupting right now. I have this planned. We're doing a quick little 3-round snake draft between the three of us. All right. So Infamously, Kent Swanson last year pinned a tweet saying the Chiefs absolutely should not, would not, cannot take Nick Bolton because it'd be the worst pick ever invented ever.
You need to pump the brakes on that. But okay.
And so, as he pinned this to his profile,
First round, by the way.
We are now draft week. So first round, we're snake drafting 3 players each that we think the Chiefs absolutely should not, would not, could not possibly draft. And Kent, since you won last year, buddy, you get to go third. Craig is up first, and I'll be sandwiched right in the middle.
Ugh.
All right. I'm going to lead it off with probably the most obvious, pick here. I'm going Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. Chiefs absolutely could not. Should not. Would not.
This is weak.
Oh, we want to do this for real?
Be real.
Okay. We'll be real here. I'm going to say Christian Watson. I know he's been a popular name that had been drafted. I don't dislike Christian Watson. I think he has a chance to be a really good player. Obviously, the athletic traits are tantalizing, but I don't want them to take him in the first round if they can avoid it. If that happens, that means a wide receiver run occurred, and the Chiefs are kind of picking after all of that run. Wait and try and get a little more value later.
Okay. Most people know mine, so I'm glad that you took Watson because he would have been one of mine. So this, I might eventually get to another one. I'm going to go with Devontae Wyatt in the first round of this. I think that's a strong one. Older prospect. I don't think he broke out until he was an old prospect, till he was a senior, 5th-year senior. And regardless, what is he, the 7th best player on that defense? I mean, realistically, we're talking about a guy, he's not as good as Trevon Walker, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Lewis Seen, Jalen Carter, Adam Anderson. Before he got kicked off the team for his legal trouble, he was better than him. Quay Walker, like, he's like the 7th or 8th best player on that defense. Why are we considering him a first round draft pick? Because he was good at the Senior Bowl versus some offensive guards and one-on-ones? Not for me. So Devontae Wyatt's my round 1 pick.
I'm really scared about this kiss of death that I'm about to give. So,
oh no,
don't take George Pickens. That would be terrible.
That was something.
I'm gonna go with Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. I don't really think there's a ton of scenarios at the end of round 1 where he's going to be the best receiver available in my eyes. I think he's kind of a gap, but away from some of these other guys that we're talking about. Even Craig's first pick, Christian Watson, I think it's a bigger jump for me personally to go from Watson to Dotson. Boy, say that fast a few times. But I think Jahan Dotson. I say this all to say, like, he's got value. He's a good football player. He's a top 100 pick. I don't like it at 29. I'm gonna be less excited for all the reasons we've talked about the last 2 weeks too. I mean, lighter frame guy. I think very narrow skill set, very specified, divine skill set. I think you can find guys with a little bit more value. We're doing snake style here, right?
Correct.
Ooh, so I get to go again?
You got the back-to-back.
Okay, so let's see here. I had one just a second ago. I'll do this because there is some. I'll just go Breece Hall. I'll go Breece Hall, the running back out of Iowa State. There's a little bit too much. Like,
are we going to allow that if we didn't allow Kenny Pickett?
That's fine. If you want to say something different, we can. Or if you want to say no,
there is more of a chance of Breece Hall getting drafted by this football team than Kenny Pickett. So I will allow it.
Well, you can keep it. You can keep it.
I have another one in the hopper. If I'll just save it because I'll just save it.
That's your 3rd round pick.
Okay, Breece Hall, because there's a little bit too much like buzz that the Chiefs aren't completely out on running back, and like some people have mocked the Chiefs Breece Hall in the top 50 picks in the last couple months. I think Daniel Jeremiah mentioned him as one of the positions or one of the spots for Breece Hall in the back end of the first round. I will be beside myself at Kingdom Bar and Grill if that happens. If they take a running back, another low positional value with one of their first picks, I will be not happy. So there's the second pick in this draft.
I'm sticking on the trenches. We're building this team from the trenches out. We're going with Boy Mafe, defensive end out of Minnesota, and I just upset everybody, every Chiefs fan, besides a couple of them, with this one. Everything I just said about Devontae Wyatt, repeat it. And now add on the fact that he's a developmental prospect. Like, what are we doing taking a guy that's going to turn 24 as a rookie, and then you're going to allow him, 1 to 2 years to develop a real pass rush plan, some depth to his pass rush toolbox. It isn't just the same club every single time as he comes around the corner. Like, I get it. He was really good at the Senior Bowl when you put him in one-on-one situations, and you might be able to find some, designated pass rush success with him early-ish in his career. I just don't know if there's that technical nuance there to his game. So you got to not only coach that out for a year or two, then once you get there, you still have to deal with a guy that's not a very good run defender after 5 years in a Power 5 weight and, strength and conditioning room, who got run at all the time. It's just, I see a lot of question marks. I don't see the difference between him and Drake Jackson out of USC. Only Drake Jackson's flashes are probably a little bit higher. He's a better run defender, and he's like 3 years younger. And one of them, we're talking about a guy that might be in the late second, third round, but Boy Mafe, because he beat up some bad tackles at the Senior Bowl, is now in round 1. I don't know. I don't get that one. So he's a guy that I'd be a little upset if the Chiefs took that swing in round 1.
I was going to take that swing for my second pick, Maddie. So thank you for that. But no, it makes perfect sense. Boy Mafe looked awesome at the Senior Bowl. Boy Mafe didn't have a run pass read for a lot of your favorite reps at the Senior Bowl. Like he got to line up and say, I'm rushing the passer, and everybody knew he was rushing the passer. And guess what? It worked. When you put that read in front of him, it gets a little muddy. So I'm going to go with Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan. And it's not that I hate the idea of a tackle early-ish in this draft. I just don't necessarily like it in round 1. I do think that there's a lot of quality tackles in day 2 of this draft. I think that you can get some guys near the end of the second round and be able to round out your offensive line. You can get yourself a right tackle of the future if you don't believe that Lucas Niang is going to be ready. I have seen some heat, linking the Chiefs to Raymond, a guy that I'm fine taking at 62. I'm fine with taking a guy that late, but there has been some round 1 talk. We see every year an offensive tackle that goes a little bit earlier, not a little bit, a lot of bit earlier than everybody expects him to. Raymond could be that guy that sneaks into the end of the first round. I would just prefer it if the Chiefs didn't go that way. All right, third round here. It's time to upset the folks here.
Take the gloves off.
I'm gonna go with Kyler Gordon. I am going to go with Kyler Gordon, and I get exactly why he makes sense for Steve Spagnuolo. I like Kyler Gordon, the player. I understand all of the reasons why Kyler Gordon is a round 1 player. Kyler Gordon just doesn't have the juice that I want from a round 1 player. I want a guy that's got a little bit more to him. A 4.52 on the outside. We talk all the time about guys, and testing doesn't mean everything. He's got great film, but we talk all the time about Steve Spagnuolo protecting his cornerbacks with safety help, giving them help, how you don't need speed on the outside. You don't have to have that quality. And I get it. And I would get Kyler Gordon fitting in this defense. But if I'm spending a round 1 pick on a corner, I don't want to have to protect him with safety help all game long. I want to be able to play a lot more single high if you're drafting a round 1 dude. And I think that you still have to be in that 2 high structure. Kyler Gordon would be awesome inside that structure. I just want the flexibility that comes with an athletic profile and the ability to play a little more isolated on the outside than Gordon may have to be at the NFL level with that speed.
I like that. I didn't want to go all defense, but you guys kind of took the receivers I'd be looking at. Raymond was the tackle that I think I would have probably put here if I went that route. So my last pick, Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. There's been a few, similar to running back, there's a few too many mock drafts out there connecting the Chiefs to linebackers in day 2. Brett Veach didn't help when he straight up said they could get better at all 3 levels of the defense. And it didn't seem like it was a throwaway all 3 levels. And they tried to add linebackers throughout free agency. So if he was there and all of a sudden they somehow thought he was the best value, I'd really hope they'd skip him. I don't want any linebacker, but I love Nakobe Dean. I would just be okay with it because he's that good of a player. I would understand the potential upside with Quay Walker, super freak that's huge, great in coverage. Devin Lloyd, I don't see it. I think he processes slow. He's not particularly a young guy. It took him a while to get going. In coverage at Utah and the Pac-12 at Utah, when it was time to cover guys, they said, nah, you're rushing the passer, which is fine. That's what Micah Parsons did. But the thing is, he was good at it. Devin Lloyd just kind of runs kind of fast and his long limbs. Like I would not like that pick at the end of round 1 if they're going to go linebacker. I think there's a good, at least those 2 other guys that I mentioned, I'd probably rather see before him.
I'm going defense to close this thing out. And I don't want to see the Chiefs draft Drake Jackson at the end of round 1.
Okay.
If the edges fall, if the edges go early, I'm very fascinated how the Chiefs navigate it. It's something I'm a little bit nervous about, if I'm being honest, because the Chiefs could be at a place where they feel desperate to make a aggressive reach for some traits potentially in the back end of round 1 instead of playing maybe a different game there. And Drake Jackson has all kinds of traits for sure. I'm very intriguing physical profile, still a super young guy. I think he just turned 20. Just turned 21. Sorry. So he's a younger prospect, which I like that. I just like the value for him in round 2.
You don't say.
Yeah, shocker, right? I think inconsistency against the run. I don't think he's really put it together, honestly, in any way, shape, or form. He's just really intriguing physical traits. He hasn't been particularly productive, for a guy with the kind of physical ability that he has either. So Drake Jackson, he's a complete swing, a complete projection. I don't like that in the end of round 1. I don't want that in the end of round 1, and I will not be happy if that is the move at the end of round 1. Maddie, who won?
There's no, I'll tell you on Thursday night when they inevitably draft one of these 9 players somewhere in the first round. Like,
two of those 9 players. They got 2 first-round picks.
We definitely lose here. Like, we 100%, we all just dunked on 9 guys, 3 guys each that we don't want the Chiefs to draft in round 1. And I think we all pick guys that are going to realistically be available. And I would say about half of them, near half, are probably options for the Chiefs to actually take. Like, one of us is going to lose.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Real quick, and I mean, Maddie, since you are throwing stuff off here and just kind of go ahead and pivoting away from what we plan on talking about.
Absolutely.
How about I pivot really quick here? Because 3 of the 5 people that did the Chiefs draft that we do every year are here in the chat too. So why don't we just kind of really quickly? I'll read off Jake and Zach's list too, but we can maybe read off all of our lists. And here's what we do, guys. I'll go back and explain really quickly. What we all do together is a game every year where we all take turns, a snake style draft, as we just did, picking 10 players each that we think the Chiefs could draft. And it's a competition. The winner of this game either gets 2, like I did one year, or 1 point. Like, really, like we list out 40 players normally in this draft, and we only wind up hitting on 1. There's reasons why. Craig has yet to score a point in this game.
Hey, cool it.
But we're 4 years in, and we've been doing that really quick. It might be kind of fun, really quick, just to read off our lists of the players that we think could be drafted by the Chiefs to try to, we have various strategies. Like, sometimes we just try to pick a lot of players in that round 1 range and hope to hit on that and that kind of stuff. I'll go really quick just to kind of read these off the top. So I went with my 10 players. This is my list of players in a snake style draft that I think the Chiefs, have a chance of taking. I'm hoping to land on 1 or 2. George Pickens, Andrew Booth Jr., David Ojabo, Treylon Burks, Jamison Williams. So I went really heavy on the round 1 type guys. Then I went Marquand McCall, the defensive tackle out of Kentucky, Nick Cross, the safety out of Maryland, Matt Waletzko, the tackle out of North Dakota, Pierre Strong, running back out of South Dakota State, Zion Gilbert, the cornerback out of FAU. So I kind of went with a hybrid of like a five first rounds, potential first rounders, and then kind of
hurt team medicals right here.
Yeah,
my goodness,
I defy
buddy
medicals. So that's my group. And as someone that scored more points in this game than anybody ever in the history of this event, I feel okay about this group. But yeah, I took some swings on some, top, first round guys. And then I added some other guys. Maddie, do you want to read off yours real quick?
Sure. As the original winner of this game, when it was first invented, the very first winner, the guy that won the first time that we ever did it.
You won. And by the way, real quick, he won with Juan Thornhill.
I won the very first one we ever did. I've also, this is fun, and Kent did this as well. I'm not going to read off everybody, but who was it? It was I also drafted DeAndre Baker one year, Somebody drafted Damon Arnett one year. Like, we've definitely drafted other guys that have found their way onto the Chiefs roster later on. Not drafted by the Chiefs, but guys that have found their way onto the Chiefs roster later. So that was just funny that I saw. All right. I went with George Karlaftis, Drake Jackson, Cameron Thomas, Josh Pascal. In case you can't tell right now, there's a little bit of a strategy here. Arnold Ebiketie. It's like I took a lot of edges at the end of round 1, into round 2. The thought process really with all of them up until Ebiketie is I was just picking a bunch of defensive ends that if the Chiefs drafted them, I don't love them. So I'd be kind of upset, but then I'm also upset and get to win the draft. So it's like a little bittersweet. It was a little bit of a change from me. So I continued that. Jahan Dotson, Calvin Austin, 2 more wide receivers that I don't particularly like. And then I went with Sky Moore, who I did like, and Wan'Dale Robinson, who I did like. So I cornered the edge market and slot receiver market. Yeah, at the end, I ran out of guys that I didn't like. So I started taking guys I liked. So I've got George Karlaftis, Drake Jackson, Cameron Thomas, Josh Pascal, Arnold Ebiketie. I did draft in the second to last round, Kayvon Thibodeau. And hey, look, it sounds like a complete shot in the dark here. It sounds like he might fall. If the Chiefs trade up for him, I should be awarded 20 points. That should be a 20-point shot if the Chiefs get the best player in the draft somehow, some way. No, I think that's only fair. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, Sky Moore, Calvin Austin Jr., Jahan Dotson. So that's my 10 guys. I literally went for edges and slot receivers. I cornered the market on edges and slot receivers. If the Chiefs get an edge or a slot receiver, I feel in the first, 50 picks, I feel like I have an above 50% chance to be right. If they draft one of those 2 positions. Now, will they? I don't know, but I feel pretty good about my odds on those 2 positions based on what I drafted.
Craig, really, really quick, Craig, I'll read Jake's really quick. We'll go Jake's first, and then I'll let you go. Jake Stack, another contributor to the KCSN guide, went Martin Emerson, Jermaine Johnson, Sam Williams, Ryan Vandemark, the tackle out of UConn, Tariq Woolen, cornerback out of UTSA, John Mechie, Tyquan Thornton, receiver out of Baylor, Daxton Hill out of Michigan, Dominique Robinson out of Miami, Ohio, Kevin Austin Jr. out of Notre Dame. So that was Jake's list. He got 0. Craig, what do you got?
We're calling the shot already. Yeah, I mean, we know my draft is correct because I started with the most likely player of any mentioned here, Joshua Williams, cornerback out of Fayetteville State, because he's a day 3 cornerback, and we all know better. So I started with that. Went with Eric Uzakonma out of Texas Tech, a day 3 wide receiver that they brought in. Michael Clemens out of Texas A&M, a day 3 edge. If you sense a theme here,
they're all going day 2 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, probably. Jalen Petrie out of Baylor, a safety. Greg Dulcich, tight end. Jalen Armour-Davis out of Alabama. David Bell out of Purdue, the wide receiver, another day 3 guy. Matthew Butler, defensive tackle out of Tennessee. Marcus Jones, slot corner and returner, almost a lock for Dave Tobe. And, of course, Velus Jones Jr., the Tennessee wide receiver. That's my stack up. The one that won easily. I mean, look at that list. Those guys are all destined to be Chiefs.
They're all Maddie's my guys.
He loaded up on Maddie my guys.
That's what they all are.
I forgot how much you love Velus.
It's funny. I mean, Craig is uber confident every year, and he's literally the only person that has not scored a point. Really quick, I'll read Zach Hicks's real quick. He went Boye Mafe, Jalen Watson, Kingsley Enagbare out of South Carolina, Christian Watson, North Dakota State, Devontae Wyatt, Georgia, Danny Gray, the wide receiver out of SMU, Isaiah Thomas, the edge out of Oklahoma, Vincent Gray, Abraham Lucas out of Washington State, and Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee. So we got 50 guys here. The Chiefs had 12 picks this year, so there's probably a higher propensity. There's just varying strategies.
It's going to be Alontae Taylor, and Zach's going to get on the board.
It's going to be brutal when Zach wins in back-to-back years. Non-Chiefs fans have won this exercise.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Jake won last year with Noah Gray because Maddie told him to use Noah Gray, didn't you?
Yes.
You don't get the point. You don't get the point for that.
I have 1 victory as a participant. I have 1 victory as a consultant. I'm like, no, I was going to compare myself to Urban Meyer of this game, but not going to do that. That's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Don't put that stink on this.
You gonna try to trade for Kadarius Toney too?
He's not available now.
Lucas Niang and Clyde. I won with Lucas Niang and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 2020, so I got 2 points. You're welcome. And then Maddie won with Juan Thornhill in year 1. So there's just that's the original pool of guys that we feel like we have, a chance of the Chiefs selecting. There's varying strategies that you can kind of use in this game. Maddie always tries to play for one, and has done that exactly once. And will
How many times have you won?
I've scored 2 points.
Okay, you won one time.
I am the all-time leading scorer in this game, and
once?
I'm twice as many as anybody ever.
You won once?
And the limit does not exist between me and Craig because it is a
Single
0.
time?
Okay. We would talk about a few like maybe scenarios that we haven't really talked about a lot in this draft.
Like Craig winning the draft?
Exactly. Like, I mean, speaking of
scenarios I'm
scenarios,
catching here. Come on now.
well, Craig, like every year you come in with some swag to this game, and every year you catch 0. Like, there's not very many things in this world that Craig is kind of has a little swagger
we're done
about.
with this. Let's move on.
No.
I hope he wins this year because he has so many of my guys on his team. Like, I can't be mad. It's like there's multiple avenues for me to win.
Yeah, hey, everybody's winning if some of these guys get taken on Craig's list. Craig's list. How about that?
Jesus.
All right, back to these scenarios. I think, there's probably some interesting things that we really haven't spent a lot of time during the draft process. We spent a lot of time on these corners and these edges and these receivers, but there's probably some scenarios that we look back and we say that kind of makes sense. There's some wild scenarios that actually kind of make sense for this football team, right? And we haven't spent a ton of time on those. And so maybe we're just going to kind of discuss maybe a few realistic scenarios for day 1, day 2 of the draft. I mean, it can be whatever. It's kind of freestyle here that maybe we aren't talking about that have some merit and some logic where maybe at the end of day 1, we look back and say, oh, that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. I kind of get it. I've got one off the top of the bat. We were talking about this a little bit today. I believe we talked a little bit about this today on Outside the Trenches when BJ talked to Carmen Vitali, a scenario. So, okay. We got done talking, my nightmare scenario with Drake Jackson in round 1 because the Chiefs are feeling, compelled to reach. All the edges, some of those edges come off the board early. The big 4 edges, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker, Jermaine Johnson, all 4 off the board in the top 10. And there's some buzz that Jermaine Johnson might wind up in the top 5. So let's say the Thibodeau hype is fake and he winds up out of the top or in the top 10 as well. Okay, so the Chiefs are sitting there, and we know Brett Veach in his press conference says, hey, there's 17, 18, 19 first-round picks in this draft, whatever it was. Well, let's say they don't want to reach for an edge. Let's say they don't feel like reaching for an edge. And let's say it's pick 15. Let's say Jordan Davis is on the board. Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle out of UGA. He's a first-round grade. He's a freak athlete. He's a massive monster of a human. Going to sit in the middle of that defense and take up 3 gaps and really be a factor in the run game. Potentially frees up Chris Jones a little bit, gives him a little bit more freedom along the interior. So let's say this team just decides to build a little bit from the middle. They go and make a trade up with the Philadelphia Eagles at 15. 29, pick 62 and 121 can get you to 15. Maybe, I mean, if you told me that the Chiefs did that for Jordan Davis in the middle of the first round, I don't think I'd be that stunned. And I think we'd all look back and go, that kind of makes sense. A big dude fits the profile that Steve Spagnuolo prefers. He likes really stopping the run. This is a guy that can stop the run. I think he frees some stuff up for this defensive line. Maybe he helps from the interior, occupying that space in the middle. I mean, I've heard worse ideas, guys. I mean, tell me, how surprised would you be if that happened? Would you be upset if that happened, Maddie?
Okay. First of all, if this happens, if Jordan Davis is falling to 15, I'm wondering how come he's falling. I'm wondering how come 14 teams have not already taken him. I mean, it's a little less, but like 14 picks have gone by and no one's taken him. Nobody else has made a smaller jump up to get him because I have to feel like there's something wrong because he's that good of a player. He's that good of a prospect that he should be going in the top 10.
Well, let's make the quick argument. It's positional value. These there's some positional value.
I want to be on the other end of the positional value battle of every other team in the NFL? I think it has to go beyond positional value then. I think it has to be people are worried about his conditioning. They saw him work out and they saw him wear down. They saw something they didn't like. I guess my concern with Jordan Davis, because there are concerns of his conditioning level, there are concerns of his ability to play all 3 downs, is that every other team is seeing something to keep them away. And the Chiefs are saying, I'm going to go trade extra assets to go get. And you can make this argument for any obvious player dropping in the draft, right? But the reason I think it sticks out specifically for Jordan Davis, guys his size that are almost as athletic as him, not as athletic, but almost as athletic as him, go early and they work. BJ Raji, Dontari Poe, Nagata, all these guys, they go early and they work for a Vita Vea. They get drafted early because they work. So if you're telling me that he's in a weak draft, he has somehow fallen to pick 15, no other team is that interested in him at a position, at a player, at a profile that works, I'm nervous to be the team that is going against traffic in that scenario so hard that you're trading up from 29 to 15. Now, will I talk myself into it? Absolutely, because I love Jordan Davis and I think he's really good. But my initial reaction would be, why are we getting on the highway through the exit ramp when nobody else is?
My initial reaction is to get naked because I'm ecstatic with that pick. I don't care. Like,
come to Kingdom Bar and Grill.
Yeah, there you go. Those guys don't make it. They don't fall in the draft. They just simply don't. And I know that everybody wants to make a ton out of the fact that he didn't play a ton of snaps. I get it. I really do. Like, people look at it and it's like, oh, he's a nose tackle. He's not necessarily a 3-down guy. Vita Vea, when he has played 16 games, he's done it twice in his career. He has played 66% of the snaps in one of them and 56% of the snaps last year, playing 16 games. That's still plenty. And that guy makes more impact in those 56% of the snaps than anybody else that you could take. If you are getting a player like that, if you are getting somebody that can be that sort of inside presence and sit there, clog up the middle, allow you to play 2 high safeties, and it's like you have 7 in the box because he's still such a dominant force against the run and blows everything up. It doesn't matter if you have to sit in 2 high all game long and you protect your corners all game long and you just sit back there and let a quarterback sit in the pocket for a little while longer, because eventually Chris Jones will get there. Jordan Davis makes it to where you don't have to bring on run personnel. You can go lighter. You can do more. You can still stop the run out of the 2 high structure and push the pocket when he is rushing the passer. He's not a great pass rusher. He's still going to offer plenty. So in that regard, I am 1000% on board with trading up for Jordan Davis, just like I'm 1000% on board with Macadoodles coming to Kansas City this summer to Lee's Summit, Missouri. You're going to go there. You're going to get the best service, the best prices, and the best selection. We love Macadoodles on this podcast. I cannot wait for that to come to Kansas City. Let's get more of them. If you're a franchisee, get a hold of Roger, info@macadoodles.com. Let's get more of them here, everywhere, and just bask in the greatness like we would bask in the greatness of Jordan Davis.
I mean, I get what Maddie's saying. 15 players, 14 players. I think you could probably, it's probably contingent on quarterbacks, but I think you could probably make a realistic scenario where Jordan Davis is falling, because you look at 4 edges off the board, all the, the big 3 tackles, you're at 7, 2 quarterbacks, 2 corners, Kyle Hamilton. I mean, we're not too far away. I don't even think have I talked about the receivers yet? I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's realistic to think that there's a scenario where he's sitting there at 15, despite being a very good player.
I don't think so.
Huh?
I personally don't think so. I think he's going higher than that. I think he's just
I think if he falls that far, teams have to be super concerned about the stuff that you're going to be concerned about, not with any D tackle, but with him. The fact that his average snap count dropped by like 10 plays per game. That's
because Georgia was up 1,000.
That is true. And they were clearly better with him on the field, but his play got better. Like, he was a better player as a senior than he was a junior. Is it because he developed? It very well could be. Or is it because he didn't play as many snaps? It's obviously, there's no real answer to that we'll ever know. It's just, I think he's so good that if he's getting past Baltimore, specifically past Baltimore, who loves players of that nature, there's got to be a little bit of a red flag or a concern that other teams are seeing that we sitting on the outside don't particularly see.
Or they just love Trevor Penning.
And I've seen the Chiefs be on the opposite side of some moves that don't make a lot of sense that the rest of the NFL doesn't agree with. And it hasn't always gone well. Sometimes it has, but it doesn't always go well. So like there would just be some concern with me that the conditioning thing really sticks out. There's been times where you've seen him gassed on the football field and not been particularly good because he was gassed. There's been other times where he's been fine against the no huddle. So it's just, that would be my concern as teams brought him in to work out. He gets gassed. You don't trust the conditioning. After 4 years at Georgia, 3 years at Georgia, you would expect it to be a little bit better. It's not. It's just, that would be my first initial thought. But like I said, I'd talk myself into it. It's just, I would be a little concerned that nobody else wanted him and the Chiefs were willing to make that big of a jump.
I gotta look at Vita Vea got picked, I believe, 10th, right? That was about where he got taken. Is that correct?
Nontari Poe picked
11th.
11th. Yes.
11th, 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
So I mean,
J. Rodney, pick 9.
Yeah, that's where those dudes go.
Pick 12.
That's just
pick
where
12.
they go.
Pick 12 was where Vita Vea went. So like you're a few picks out. You know, you're hoping that you're hoping to hit on it. You might be a few picks out. Maddie, do you have a scenario that you want to kind of throw out here?
Yeah, I don't think this one's quite as wild, but given
calling this one wild?
Given the stuff that has been talked about here as of late in terms of what the Chiefs might be trading up for, what may be happening, what if the Chiefs just don't simply care to take a wide receiver in round 1? What if the Chiefs simply don't even care to take one of the rest of the top 50? Like, let's say they get out of round 1. Let's say they get past pick 50 and they haven't taken a wide receiver, whether they don't like the way the board fell, whether that wasn't something they planned on taking early, whether they are trying to rely on, and I quote, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to get those guys going. Like, whatever it may be, what if they don't do that? What if there's just no interest in a receiver early and all this talk about them trying to trade up for a receiver in the draft has just been, a little bit of smoke and mirrors. It's been a little bit of a game that they've been playing, and they're just sitting back and they're like, hey, we're going to catch whatever value receiver we can at the end of round 2 or in round 3 and see if our, a quarterback and our head coach can make this stuff work. How do you guys feel if you get specifically past pick 50, but even out of day 1 without a receiver?
I mean, I start to get a little bit worried about what the offense is going to look like. But I mean, Brett Veach mentioned that he is, basically on the phone with Patrick Mahomes all the time. He's looking at, what's happening down there. He's hearing from Patrick Mahomes, hey, this guy looks good. This guy's putting in the work. I like the chemistry that I have with this guy and the ability of this guy to do this in our offense. Like, he's listening to his quarterback right now. And Brett Veach said, that definitely informs some of their draft decisions. So if they're down there working out and Patrick Mahomes is saying, hey, listen, I love MBS. I love Juju. Kelsey looks great. McCall Hardman has been down here putting in the work. We believe that these guys are good enough to where we can wait, where we don't have to sit here and take a guy in round 1. It seems like the most obvious choice in the world to take a wide receiver early in this draft. If he's saying, no, we don't have to do that because I believe in these guys enough, you might start hearing maybe rumors over the past couple of weeks that the Chiefs are trying to trade up for specific receivers, and they've been linked to specific receivers like they have. I can see a scenario where all the smoke and all the fire seems to be pointing to a wide receiver, and this is Brett Veach doing a good job of playing the game, knowing that he trusts his quarterback and the guys that are down there working, and keeping his eye on guys like Eric Ezukanma late in the draft, a guy that, would make a ton of sense in this offense, but is going to take a little time to come on, would be more of a weapon year 1 as he grows into the role. I would be scared by the wide receiver room personally, but I can see the avenue to that for sure, especially with some of the stuff that we already know that's out there right now.
A little Alec Pierce in your life. Round 2.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit more Alec Pierce today. I was a little too low on him early in the process, I think. I'll go out as far to say I think the Chiefs trading up for a wide receiver is a smokescreen. 100. I feel very good about that being a smokescreen. I think the scenario you just presented, Maddie, is extremely realistic. I could see them trying to get cute.
What are you saying? Yours isn't realistic?
Come on. I just think there's enough thoughts about how Andy Reid builds a football team that you could make a case for him just grabbing a big human and trading up for a big human if he's available. Anyways, I digress. Alec Pierce is also a big human just as a receiver, but that's neither here nor there.
Dude.
Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are trading up for a receiver. I really don't. And I don't think I think they maybe they are trying to push. Maybe they feel good about the value up and down the board of the receiver, which is going to scare Maddie because he hates that word. You hate when Veach starts talking about value.
When is the last time that value besides Trey Smith was just a good thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when was the last
I
time?
know he got good players in Nick Bolton and
thing?
Creed Humphrey. I get it. They're good players. They just play positions that don't matter.
Right.
That's why I'm scared about value. They have all their holes are at positions that matter. You don't find value for positions that matter.
You don't find value at corner very often. Sometimes you just don't find corners, and sometimes you turn safeties into corners. But yeah, I think if you were going to ask me like the Chiefs' first pick in the draft, I'm picking defense. And I think you could see the Chiefs making 2 picks on the defensive side of the football in the back of the round run. Like I think if I look at the board, and Matt is gonna hate the word, but like I think you can find a better receiver at 50 than you can find like a cornerback. Like if you take the swing on Andrew Booth Jr. at 30 and you trade up a little bit for an edge, or like Karlaftis falls to the 20s and you go trade up for him, and it's Karlaftis and Booth, and now you're sitting at 50 trying to grab whatever receivers there, maybe a small trade up for there. I think the second round at receiver makes a lot of sense. And yeah, maybe they even get cute and get all the way back at 62 and grab a receiver. I wouldn't be stunned. And it kind of goes against the conversation we had a little bit where we would be happy with the best receiver that gets added to this football team. That's where that conversation happens, because I don't think any of the guys that we talk about in that kind of clear 2 tiers of receiver, or 3 tiers or 2 tiers of receiver are going to be there at 50, are going to be there at 62. There's a chance you catch him at 50 and maybe a small trade up.
It sounds like George Pickens may be there at 62. All depends on what kind of smokescreen stuff you want to read into.
Yeah, no, there is some talk about, the George Pickens situation. He's definitely not a clean prospect by all indications. And there's some talk about maybe some stuff behind the scenes there, before all this stuff kind of came up in the last couple of days. And you've got the injury to take into consideration. And when we do that, transparently, when we do the KC draft guide, we don't really take into consideration the injury or the character, because it's hard to paint a brush for every single player in that particular category. So we try to keep it based mostly on the film. We'll notate issues that we've heard, that might be out there when it comes to medicals or off field in the actual guide when we do the write-ups. But most of our it's film grade, honestly. So our film grade love the player. But yeah, maybe George Pickens does fall to 62.
And now think about it this way, though. Brett Veach made sure to point out when he was talking about wide receivers, it's like there are going to be guys that fans love and fans are going to see on the board and go, we'll just take that guy. That's the guy. But, he said the words, we know, more about these players. We've got medical concerns. We've got character concerns. We've got things like this. And he was specifically talking about wide receivers at that point. George Pickens has been one of the most mocked to the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers in this offseason. And Brett Veach is out here in a press conference saying, hey, listen, there's going to be a guy on the board that we're going to pass on. And, y'all need to get right with it because we know some stuff about it. I think he's screaming Pickens at the top of his lungs there in that thing. So
it's Pickens or Andrew Booth.
Pickens or Booth. Yeah.
It was corner into receiver talk, and that's when it came up. But it just feels like it's definitely one of those 2 guys, because I think that even came right after. It's fun to use mock draft simulators and get these guys that are always like, he talked about mock draft simulators, then went on to the medicals and character interviews and guys that aren't even on their board because of those things. And so I'm with Craig. It seemed very targeted, and it's just, we'll never know who it was actively about, but it doesn't seem like it's a far jump, especially given that, George Pickens did come in for a top 30 visit. Like, they did come in and get medicals and have an interview with them. Andrew Booth Jr. did not. So, that we know of. So it could be a little different, but still, to me, it seemed like it was definitely about one of those 2s, because it's just listening to him, watching him, it seemed very targeted.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to tell draft Twitter to calm down a little bit, because they're going to be disappointed. But
I am about to pass on your favorite player in the draft. Chill, draft Twitter. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I know George Pickens gets a lot of run. and it sounds like he could
From
have
us
been.
too?
Pickens gets a lot of run, and rightfully so, because he's a very, very good football player. And those kind of football players aren't typically available where the Chiefs pick, which is what's so tantalizing about him. Same with Andrew Booth Jr. Both of those players you don't see very often where the Chiefs are picking. That's why it's so intriguing. So I don't know. It did seem like he's trying to set some expectations. It's like, hey guys, just so you know, we're gonna draft Sky Moore over George Pickens. Hey guys, just so you know,
What's wrong with that?
I mean, I like George Pickens more, but I'm just saying. Oh, actually, I'll be honest with you. I think we're higher on Sky Moore than a lot of people in Kansas City are, because when we mocked Sky Moore in the first round of the Chiefs, people were very upset.
Very.
So, I'm just saying, like, I think there's probably, it sounded like there was some expectations being set a little bit there, and I don't know. It's interesting. Craig, do you have you have a scenario you want to throw out there? Is anything that you like some?
Yeah, I have a scenario.
Right.
One of the things that I have pounded the table for all offseason here is trade the picks. Trade them.
You have been. You're very on there.
Let's go.
Trade it for
all
veterans.
the picks.
Trade up. Trade everything. Like, go get good football players. Just go for that. So I have always kind of maintained that. So my scenario is stay put, because I think that there are going to be good players involved here. The more I look at the board, the more I see the kinds of players that could realistically go in the first round of the NFL draft. We don't have to go very far to get to a board that is very favorable for the Chiefs, both at positions of need and at quality players. I think that you can line those two up. Now, you may have to sacrifice one of them. I wrote on the Substack today some of these scenarios. You may have to sacrifice the edge position or the wide receiver position to try and get one of these quality players to fall. So I do think that you can pick and choose some of these things, but there are realistic scenarios to where multiple quarterbacks get taken, multiple linebackers get taken, lots of offensive linemen get taken. And now all of a sudden the Chiefs have their pick of maybe that second tier of wide receiver. Maybe there is a Chris Olave there, or a Garrett Wilson there, or a Treylon Burks, or God forbid, a Drake London, a guy that should not be there. Like, that group of guys could fall realistically to the Chiefs at pick 29 and 30. And I think that we've all seen Brett Veach's aggressiveness. We've all seen his willingness to go get his guy, whether trading picks, trading up, doing whatever he wants to do there. We've seen that aggressiveness, and I think we all expect that aggressiveness. And the smokescreen coming out here of, them trading up for a wide receiver and everybody going, no, they're going to trade up for a defensive end instead. What if they see the board and they see the uncertainty and they see the potential to just realistically stay there and get a guy that they like, or get two guys that they like? Take a wide receiver and one of the best safeties. You're going to get one of these guys and be able to make an impact by staying put. The more and more that I think about it, and the more and more that I hear about the way that this draft class is evaluated in the past couple of weeks, which could be complete smoke screens, the more I think that the Chiefs might just very well stay put because they like the way that the board will fall to them.
I mean, it's entirely possible, and I don't think it's completely unrealistic to think that they stay relatively put over the course of this draft when it comes to instead of moving up, which I believe Brett Veach has made some form of trade up or trade back in. I guess is still a trade up in my opinion. In every draft, there's been at least one. Now, some have been like the first 2 years it was aggressive. The last 2 years it's been small and restrained.
Mm-hmm.
He traded up for he traded back into the draft for Bo Peep Keys in 2020, and then he traded up small for Noah Gray in day 3 of the draft. So the last 2 years have actually been pretty small for the most part. So I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable. I still think, like that, in that scenario, like, yes, there's good football players. You're not getting a blue chip. You're probably not getting a guy that's going to have a blue chip ceiling. And so, like, I think that's the debate that they're probably having in some capacity, I would say right now is, okay, we've got 17, 18 first round picks. We think we got some blue chip players here. Who are the potential ones that could fall? How high are we willing to go up for them? But maybe it is simply if all of these guys that if they have blue chips and like the Jordan Davises and the Kayvon Thibodeaux and maybe even the George Karlaftises, if they just feel like they're going to get too rich for their blood to move up to go acquire one of those guys, then yeah, maybe they're just sitting back and playing, to just let value fall to them for the entirety of the draft. And maybe that's where they feel a little bit more comfortable with Andrew Booth and David Ojabo in a more restrained approach to how they're going to, navigate their draft capital.
12 picks is a lot of picks.
That's why, and that's why I think like to Craig's, like, I don't think they're going to make 12 picks, but like, I think to what Craig is saying, it's like, maybe it's not these big moves up that they're making. It's not
make the moves in round 2. Move up in round 2. I think that the group of guys that could realistically be available at the end of round 1 and early round 2 fit a lot of what the Chiefs are looking at. I mean, again, you're going to have to sacrifice like one of edge or wide receiver to make that happen. But if you like those dudes, I think that you can make moves then. You're still not making 12 picks, but you're adding a lot of that group of guys. Maddie wants to pick all of those 7th rounders. He wants
Maddie's
to sit there through the entire draft and just wait out those 7th round draft picks.
I think with it, it's like I get the logic. I think Veach sitting up there pounding his chest about the value being between 30 and 60 was very specifically because they have pick 30 and pick 62. Like, I don't think anybody thinks the value is there. I think you've heard a lot of people historically, I guess the value of like pick 17 to 34 is like the same. Like, that's just the production from pick 17 to 34 is roughly equal. And then there's a big gap after that. 30 to 60 seemed like a weird cutoff. Like, if the Chiefs go this route, I get it. I think they want the option of 2 first-round picks. I think it's entirely plausible they sit there and don't do that. When I listen to Brett Veach talk, I have 12% belief he's trying to sit there and make 2 first-round picks. I think he's trying to move up in round 1. I think there's a very, he specifically said pick 19 like 3 times. There was a lot of talk. I think there's a lot of action on his end of trying to move up. I would be a little surprised if they make both picks in round 1. Like I said, no qualms if they want to sit there and do it. I get trying to let it go out. I get that he's kind of gotten a little bit less aggressive as time has gone on now. He's kind of calmed down a little bit, but I don't know. You have 12 picks. You have 8 picks in the first 4 rounds. Like, you have massive holes at positions that require real investment, not just sitting and waiting for the value of guard and linebacker to fall into your lap. Like, you have positions that actually matter. This is the singular year that you go make your move. The year that you have 12 picks, the year that you have all this ammunition is the time where you actually move up. You don't move up when you only have 7 draft picks and they're scattered, 1 in each round. This is the only year that like screams, hey, this team's moving around in the draft because they have so many picks. Go get somebody that changes the defense rather than 2 guys that, they might start, they might not because they're at the end of round 1. Like, that's kind of where you're picking.
Pick 29 and 62 should get you up to pick 18, by the way. Just keep that in the back of your head.
Maddie hates a draft of Chris Olave and Lewis Cine. Man, I can't believe that those words just came out of his mouth. Unbelievable.
Wait, I thought we weren't trading up to pick 16 to get Chris Olave. Wait a second.
I want to circle back to something Maddie said really quick because we've talked about this on this show, and like hitting on the Creed Humphreys and the Nick Boltons of the world is great. But to Maddie's point, this team needs high positional value players on this roster, and it's not easy. You can't stumble into an edge and a corner and a receiver the same way you can get them in the back end of round 2. And so you've got to be more intentional about addressing those positions in the earlier rounds if you're going to make more calculated swings on players. And so I think that's where it kind of comes in. If you want an edge, you probably have to move up. I mean, I think that's kind of where we're, even for a George Karlaftis, I think you're going to have to move up, and it may not matter. They may not be in the range of a George Karlaftis. I mean, which is crazy. But I mean, if you want like a close to a sure thing, a guy that you're really excited about, I mean, to their point, you're gonna have to move up, which is why I'm gonna just throw one more scenario out really quick right before we get out of here. To your point, what if they start with a trade back? What if you're sitting there at the end of round 1, the quarterbacks haven't fallen off the board yet, and let's say Seattle calls and they offer you 40 and 72 for pick 29 and 135. So you're getting, another, 2 top 70 picks. You're moving back, 11 spots. They're going up to get a quarterback. You feel good there, so you're not losing one of your guys at 30. Doesn't mean you can't trade up and move. It makes day 3 or day 2 insane because Brett Veach will be moving all over the place in that draft. He'll be flying around the board. But what if that's the scenario? What if they're moving? What if they start with the trade back because one of these, because like we'll call it Seattle, like I said, getting 40 and 72 for 29 and 135, and they're gonna continue to stack assets in that 30 to 50 range. They're gonna have 3 or 4, 3 picks in that range, and then a 62, 72. Maddie, what would your thoughts be if that happens?
They better have traded up with 29 before they trade back with 30. Don't want to just trade. I don't want to sit there and take the leftovers at 29 and then trade back and take the leftovers at 41 and 50. Like, I get you're saying they can move up again from there, but like, I think there's a pretty hard cap around pick 45-ish, and you're going to need some luck to get the guys that you really want or that make a difference for your team at 41 and at 50. Trading back those 10 extra spots to get into that next tier at 41 and then potentially 70 is not the move I'm making unless, like I said, they traded up first and you're trying to recoup some of those assets you lost in your trade up. Maybe you traded up for Jermaine Johnson if he falls a little bit or whatever. Now you want to get back some of your day 2 picks and you want to trade out? Sure, absolutely. But to just make that as a move, so many extra picks for a team that doesn't need extra picks. They need difference makers. They don't need random shots. They need guys that move the needle.
And see, that's the thing. I think everybody looks at this and goes, "Hey, listen, we know that there's a lot of holes on this team. The defense in particular. Like, you look at it and you're like, well, why wouldn't we just keep adding players? Like, keep adding shots, take more shots to try and find a guy that's going to make the team. You still can only carry 53 dudes. There's practice squad guys. You can kind of stash guys in that way as well. We've seen them mystery IR guys. There are ways around that, but realistically, they're only going to be able to add a certain number of guys. Every year, Brett Veach has added 6 guys to the roster, and not all of them have made the roster, made the 53-man roster in that. Now, there are more holes in this year's roster, but that's not to say that you're going to draft 12 guys that are going to make the roster. As a matter of fact, it is highly unlikely that if he makes even 10 picks, that all 10 players, even 8 picks, one of those guys is more likely to not make the roster. So I get and I understand reading the pockets, trying to find the value. So I'm with Maddie. You stay put in those 2 scenarios and then you trade down. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you're adding more guys that are going to probably make the roster but aren't going to be big impact players. And then you've still got all those guys at the end of the draft that basically you're going to need to add still to your practice squad because they're going to be special teamers. They're going to be backups largely. I would rather invest one guy high and then trade back. So I do like Maddie's line of thinking there, but yeah, I keep seeing everybody, just add as many players as possible. Man, I'm to the point now where get me down to 7. Like, get me down to 7 guys. I mean,
moral of the story: trade both round 1 picks and go get Kayvon Thibodeau as he falls to the back end of top 10.
That's
the move. That's the move.
And that was officially the first time we've talked about trading back on this show. I think all
good.
Season.
Never do it again.
I'm more apt to trade the first 2 round picks and go up and get like a Thibodeau than I am. We've thrown like maybe you can make the math work on the second pick the Giants have, pick 7. You're not too far removed from that. Like, I think we've kind of looked at it a little bit. You might be able to finagle that where you give 29 and 30, and then I think you could give like pick 103 about gets you there.
But don't we have to give up more to get James Bradbury too? Isn't that part of the deal?
Yeah.
No, they give us stuff back to take that.
To take that contract. Got it.
maybe just Kadarius Toney while we're at it.
Ooh.
And we'll just take them all, and maybe they'll give us the 7th round or the 7 overall just for that. But like, I don't know. There's some areas you could use that. Like, I mean, getting up to 7. Like Brett Veach said in his press conference, hey, we're not going to get any too crazy. I don't anticipate anything into the top 10, which is exactly why they will be trading into the top 10 of this draft, because he told you to your face, don't believe anything you hear today. So there you have it. And maybe it is. Maybe they just go all the way up to like 7 with 29, 30, and 103. And then here's the funny thing. They do that. They still have 50, 62, 103. They have all kinds of picks. That is going to do it for the KC Laboratory. Thank you guys so much for listening. We are so excited for draft weekend. Go hit the the draft guide link down there. The KCSN draft guide if you want. You can also hit the subscribe button. That really helps this show. That helps everything we're doing at KC Sports Network. We are so excited for draft season. We'll catch you later.